This wasn't originally going to be part of this video, but I figured that I would show it anyway in the name, of venting my spleen a little bit about packaging materials, which I don't mean in any way to cast aspersions on the person that gave this to me, because I know who they are. Their YouTube username, I believe they go by Kirby Crazy on YouTube now, but it used to be MattS78MN. You might have better luck looking that up, I don't know. But I got this thing today and I was so excited. Took a genuine box cutter too. Open this thing up. You can probably see it already. Oh Lord, this thing is full of snowman poop. Whoever invented this stuff should be punished, preferably severely. And then all this stuff should be loaded into a rocket and sent on a one-way trip into the Oort cloud. Because all that packing peanuts do is get all over everything and make a giant mess. Hopefully I can get this out of here without making a giant mess. Yeah, it's like stuck to it. Maybe, you know what, forget it. I'll just let it make the mess that it's going to make anyway. I don't know, is there more in here? I think there might be. Not sure why it was shipped in a box like this. But, I don't know. It's better than a mailer, that's for sure. Yeah, there we go. Guess that's the, that must be the power adapter. Now, is there anything else? I don't think so. I think I have evacuated the box of everything that's valuable, but now I gotta, of course, clean up this packing peanut mess and get this unwrapped and figured out. Here it is, folks. 2 bags of garbage packaging material later. Next to it is another machine that is the same but different. What do I mean by that? Well, you probably already know exactly what I mean by that, just by looking at the title of the video. But if you don't, I'll string you along for a little bit longer. Obviously, there's a difference in the size of the 2 machines, but that's not really pertinent. This is the smaller 12-inch model of the PowerBook G4. This is a 15-inch PowerBook G4. But you might notice a massive difference in the construction. When most people think of the PowerBook G4, they think of one of these. The OG aluminum Apple Macintosh. Or at least close to. Know that the Mac Mini G4 had an aluminum body, so did the Power Macintosh G5. But I believe these PowerBook G4s came out before either of those. So they are the ones that are the first. Kickstart the aluminum craze. But before there was the aluminum, there was the titanium, and that's what this is. This is a titanium PowerBook G4. Now the design is the same but different. Again, you take a look at it, and unless you pay very careful attention, it really doesn't look all that different. But the first thing that you'll notice right off the bat, there is no standby LED in the latch here, like the aluminum models had. It's a little hard to see, but it is there. Again, this is a little bit different because this is the 12-inch, so it's got the optical drive on the side here, as opposed to this one, which does not. The optical drive is on the front. Kensington lock is there, and a cooling vent. Of course, on the back of the aluminum model is nothing but cooling vents. Right underneath there. And on the titanium, see it's got the power input there. We come over to this side, and there are no ports on this thing whatsoever. There's a headphone jack, and that's it. Nothing else. I'm mildly surprised to see that, but of course I missed something important. The flip-down door here that these models never had to reveal all the ports. Of course, it's a slightly older model. Firewire 400, Ethernet, 2 USB ports, a full-size DVI port, which this does not have. I believe the larger ones did. I had a 17-inch PowerBook G4, and that had a full-size DVI port. S-video output. There is the line input and the modem behind the door, which is something that this does not have. Again, we can go ahead and we can open these. The latch is pretty much the same. Same kind of design. Although with these, you have to be extremely careful because the hinges are a weak point on these titanium PowerBooks. On this one, they're actually in very good condition. But on most of them, they're completely destroyed. Go ahead and we can open it up here. Do the same thing with the aluminum model. You could kind of get an idea. Again, pretty much the same sort of design, it's just that this is titanium as opposed to aluminum. You can see it's painted. It is a painted surface, and the paint's wearing off a little bit there, but it's just the same as this. This is just anodized. If this were solid aluminum, it would corrode on contact with the air. Very interestingly, I mean, otherwise they're pretty much the same. Keyboard layout's the same. This one, of course, has got speakers someplace else. It doesn't have the normal speakers that would be on the side like the larger models do, like this one's got here. Intriguingly, it looks like this uses a much older design of keyboard. Still a clear plastic keyboard. Almost looks like something straight out of a PowerBook G3. So does the font on that word PowerBook G4 there, as opposed to the font on the newer machine. This unit is a 667 megahertz, what they call the tie book. Well, what the community calls a tie book. Apple didn't really refer to them as that. This is, of course, the model with the DVI that you saw there, which means that it lacks the infrared that previous models had. But it has gigabit Ethernet. It would have shipped with 256 megabytes of memory standard. This one's got 512 megabytes in it. Of course, aforementioned 667 megahertz PowerPC G4 processor. I don't know what kind of hard drive this has in it. 30 gigabyte was the standard, although there was a BTO option for a 60 gigabyte. There's no telling what's in it now. It would have shipped with a combo drive, an 8-speed combo drive, which means DVD-ROM, CD-RW, read DVDs, burn CDs. And I think that's a pretty good overview of the machine itself, discussing what's going on. It's certainly seen some use. It's not unused or anything like that, but I think what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and clean off my workbench so we can power this thing on and take a look at more aspects of its design and specifications. Huh. Believe it or not, it's going to actually try and charge that battery. That's amazing. I believe this is the first model of the PowerBook that used that style charger, which is the style of charger that you're probably familiar with for the PowerBook G4. That optical drive sounded a little needy. No idea if it works. The system itself does work. This is completely as found. I haven't done anything to it. As purchased, I should say. At some point it'll probably get a reload of the Mac OS. Now what version that'll be, I'm not entirely sure just yet. Whether it'll get Tiger, which appears to be what it's running, just by looking at the user interface. Yeah, I don't think that's going to charge the battery. I mean, that battery's pretty much toasted. Here's the hard drive. It is running 10.4. It's PC133 SD RAM, which means upgrading it to the full 1 gig is probably not going to be an easy feat. There's the machine type there. I believe that this is fully IDE through and through. There would be no serial ATA on something like this. It's an IBM hard drive, 30 gigabytes in size, so probably original. Doesn't really have any data on it to speak of. In fact, it was probably reloaded. It came from a recycling center. It does say CDRW. I don't know, maybe this isn't a combo drive after all. We'll get to find out in a minute. Texas Instruments audio, no Bluetooth, power on self-test. There we go, disc burning. Reads DVDs, yes, it does. And of course it's a CD burner, so that is indeed a combo drive as shipped. There's obviously no fiber channel, 400 megabit FireWire, ATI Radeon 7500 graphics with a very odd resolution, 1280 by 854. Not really sure why Apple chose to do that, although it could have been to one-up their competition because, or maybe even one down their competition, because even though this is only a 15.2 inch display where the standard is 15.4, it's got 54 extra pixels in the vertical direction. There's your RAM information, 2 SODIMMs. One of those is probably original, the other one is probably added later. They're both basically the same. This does have a PCMCIA card slot on the side here. It'll go right there. There's a little button. Pretty typical stuff. There, of course, is the PC card controller, card bus capable. Although on something this new, it would almost certainly be card bus capable. It'd be kind of odd to just be PCMCIA only. There is a difference. A lot of manufacturers don't get that right. Of course, your timing information, printers, no serial ATA, USB, and airport, which this does have. Now, my interest is whether or not this is 802.11g compatible, or if it's still just 802.11b. Since it seems like it was reloaded, it's probably safe. I don't think there's really any files on the drive or anything like that. You know, there's nothing really here. Just 2 gigabytes worth of stuff. So yeah, not much to really speak of here. Just kind of is what it is. I forget what I was doing now. Oh, I was probably about to connect it to my network. I'll go ahead and I'll do here. Maybe I won't be connecting it to my wireless network just yet, because look at this. It's too old to support WPA. Guess I'll be hooking it up through Ethernet first. So, Well, good thing that's also convenient. I don't even remember where the Ethernet is on this machine. I think it's behind that door. Alright. Made a new user account, so that started fresh. Changed settings to match reality here. And now we're running updates. So hopefully that will allow me, once those updates are installed, because I believe that 10.4 does support WPA authentication for wireless networks, but I guess we'll find out. You know, the more that I use this machine, the more I really don't like this keyboard. I think it's extremely flimsy. I don't like it. There's something about it that I don't like. I do have to give a little bit of a correction. I was talking about this being titanium, solid painted titanium. That's not true. It is anodized, just like the aluminum the aluminum PowerBook, although some of the later iMacs were also anodized. But irrespective of all of that, these have a mostly plastic and magnesium frame with anodized titanium on the bottom shell, like this right here. And the problem with this, and you can actually see it with this one, potentially, if my camera would focus on it, is that this piece starts to separate, this bottom panel, which is titanium. It separates from the rest of the frame. At the front, it's worst. It can separate from the back, but it's a lot less common because at the back is where all the screws are. And of course, when this separates, it's actually quite sharp. But this one's in surprisingly good condition. The other problem, because it's anodized, and there are certainly some on this, it is extraordinarily easy to scratch it. And when you do scratch it, it is permanent. You can see some heavier scratching back there. This side of the machine is in pretty good condition for some reason. I don't really know why. Just that it is. There's the battery. I'm pretty sure it's completely dead by now. I mean, this model, the titanium PowerBook was introduced in 2001. This is a later model from 2002 that actually introduced the DVI port that you saw at the back. Originally, these had VGA on them. But yeah, the battery, well, it claims that it's actually going to charge it. I don't know how much I believe that. I really don't, I don't think I believe that. But, okay, fair enough. Sure, whatever you say. Anyway, back to updates, which it's probably done with by now, but, you are not connected to the internet. Well, I probably disconnected my network by accident. Let me try connecting to the wireless again. Yeah, this may not work, because I believe that the support for WPA, WPA2, and all that stuff is not necessarily a fault of the operating system. It's a fault of the card. So unless I want to set up, and I might do that just for kicks and grins, unless I want to set up a network that's either got no security at all or WEP security, which is easily broken, this thing will never really connect to the wireless again. In fact, it never will, because nothing really supports that anymore. Everybody's moved on to newer standards. In fact, I think WPA3 is an ongoing concern, although most things are still only WPA2. Before the Titanium Series PowerBook, Apple's ongoing concern was this. Now, it didn't quite look like this. This is an older Wall Street model. But it was effectively the same basic design. See, this one's kind of falling apart a little bit, but yeah, maybe more than a little bit. But and it exists. Anyway, this nice curved design, very sleek, very stylish, probably one of the sexy laptops of the time that a lot of people started copying. So Apple decided to break the mold a little bit. It didn't start with the TiBook. It actually started with the iBook G3. They're the white plastic iBook G3 that was basically the same design as this, just smaller and meant for the consumer market, which they later updated to the G4 and kept the same basic design with that. But believe it or not, something else that this machine is notable for, it is the last series of Macintosh laptops to have a port door. And, you know, just like all the port doors before it, these are pretty fragile. This one's still intact. The hinges, as mentioned, or at least I think I mentioned, if not, I'm mentioning them now, they are a major sore point on these, even though they look like they're industrial strength overbuilt. For one thing, the paint wears off of them, just like pretty much all the rest of this machine. And the second thing is that they wear out. They start fracturing and developing splits and fatigue issues pretty early on, so it's kind of rare to find one of these that's actually got good hinges now, especially considering, you know, it's been 23 years since this rolled off the production line. The hard drive, if you'll take a listen to that, you really can't hear other than when the head stack is going off. And again, that's a rarity. That's an IBM hard drive, and usually after several years of use, those drives started sounding like cement mixers. I've got a lot of those in my possession. Remember that Toshiba Tecra 8100? Now, that's about what those drives usually sound like. In fact, actually not even so much that. That Latitude CPX J750 GT I've got also has a hard drive that sounds like it's mixing cement. That's usually what those IBM drives start sounding like. So this one, being in as good a condition as it is, really is kind of an oddity. You just don't see that. Sure are a lot of Java updates for this thing. But something else these were notable for, these were the last Apple portables to ship with macOS 9. Not all of them did, of course. Shipped solely with macOS 9. The original TiBooks, the 400, and I don't remember if it was a 550 or a 450 that sold alongside it, or a 500, something like that. But the original TiBooks shipped with macOS 9.2, or maybe it was even 9.1 as the default, although some later ones shipped with 10.0, 0.3 I believe, by default. This would have shipped as a dual boot, 9.2.2 and 10.1.4, I think. Of course, it's running 10.4.11 now. If you really wanted to get kinky, for lack of a better way to describe it, it is theoretically possible to put 10.5 on these, even though they don't officially support 10.5. You could do it, you just wouldn't like it, because like everything else, 10.5 really was just kind of a lemon operating system in terms of actual performance. So, you know, you get what you get, really. 10.4 is really as high as you could go with something like this, and what's even really the point of going with 10.5 anyway, when you consider that there's no new software being made for the PowerPC architecture anyway. It is here, and it is in good condition. There is wear, of course, but not too much. It's mostly confined to the keyboard, the things that usually wear out the first. And even that battery seems like it might actually still work. That'll be a miracle if that actually ends up taking a full charge and will power the machine. I might have to try that out. That might be an interesting test. But I can't imagine that it will go well. That aluminum model that I showed earlier in the video has got a completely dead battery in it. So I can't imagine this one actually works. And speaking of dead batteries, my camera is telling me that I need to change my battery. So I think I'm done blathering on about the machine and all the various aspects of it. So there is my titanium PowerBook G4. Yet another step towards having a Macintosh of every generation. Which is not really a goal, by the way. It's not really my plan, just the interesting ones. So, thank you for watching. It does have the light up apple on the back, if you're wondering. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave them below.